Hey, so I just saw the Tom and Jerry movie, not that Tom and Jerry movie, the newest one, the 2021, the movie Tom and Jerry, not the Tom and Jerry movie. Maybe that's how I'll tell them apart. I don't know. But before I tell you my thoughts on it, just for those that don't know, which is probably very few of you, but just to be sure, if you're wondering what my thoughts are on Tom and Jerry, big fan. Love Tom and Jerry. I've talked about them a lot on this channel. I've also made fun of a lot of their recent stuff, like the original Tom and Jerry movie, Tom and Jerry Meet Willy Wonka and all that stuff. But I love praising the original cartoons and the timing and the slapstick and the personalities. I think there's a reason they get millions and millions of views on YouTube because, I mean, just anyone can watch them and really enjoy them. So now we have this movie that's come out from Warner Brothers. It's in theaters now, but it's also released on HBO Max. And the good news is it's not the original Tom and Jerry movie. Most of it. We'll get to that. But pretty much my sum up, just the fast Cliff Note version, when it's trying to be a cinematic comedy, it's pretty bad. When it's trying to be a Tom and Jerry cartoon, it's pretty good. It's not great, but it's good. This is another one of those cases where the trailer, a lot of people say, oh, trailers give away too much, but to their credit, they do usually give what they're promising now. Like the only time I see like false advertising is usually for really lower budget films where it's like, we gotta get people in here, say this actor who's there for 2 minutes is in it like the majority of the time, that kind of thing. But trailers now, like with this one, pretty much give you what you're going, what you're expecting. So when I saw the trailer to this, and I'm sure you've seen it too, Tom and Jerry are animated, that they're supposed to look hand-drawn, they're very clearly computer, but they're not done bad, especially compared to some of your characters in this movie. But they enter a hotel. There's this lady who applies for a job, played by Chloë Grace Moretz, I think I got that right. And big surprise, she's pretending to be something she's not. And Tom and Jerry are in there, and she's trying to help out this couple who's getting married and, do her job well at the hotel. But there's a mouse, so she recruits Tom to go and try to chase Jerry. And from there, all sorts of comedic hijinks happen. There's a big bad boss who, is trying to get her fired, played by Michael Peña. And, just all sorts of crazy antics and little in-jokes and stuff like that. And if you saw the trailer and you were like, that looks awful, it's not going to win you over. But if you saw it like I did and said, well, the people look dumb, but Tom and Jerry look good, I think you'll like it enough. If you're a really big Tom and Jerry fan and you like the slapstick, you like their personalities, you like the timing of it, you like the creativity of how they do the violence and stuff like that, this does have that. It's not all perfect, but it does have that. And what I like is that it takes a lot of the original routines and it'll kind of have that timing to it. Like it'll get it down and then it'll kind of it'll go a little further with it. Like they'll make it a little faster. They'll sort of do some fun camera tricks with it. And it's a good balance of the two, where you have, like I said, more of the traditional timing of Tom and Jerry, which is great. I love that. But then they'll also go a little faster, and it's not to a point where it's like, distractingly annoying or too chaotically edited or anything. Like it's well paced. The rest of the movie, not so much. So how do I put it? The writing in this is not that bad. Well, let me rephrase that. The story's pretty bad, but I think this writer was probably given the task of, hey, you know how the Smurfs made a lot of money? Hey, you know how the Chipmunks made a lot of money? Do that! You know how Dustin Checks In exists? Do that! It's that very standard plot and the Lyra revealed story and everything that they say, we gotta hit these check marks. But for a story that had to do that, was clearly forced to do that, the dialogue and some of the writing is actually not that bad. Where it kind of falls apart is the direction. And the person who directed this is Tim Story, who has directed one or two good things. He directed Barbershop. I really like Barbershop. But he also directed, like, the Fantastic Four movies and Taxi and the Ride Along movies. A lot of films that are not held in high regard. And as soon as I saw his name on there, and especially when I heard it open with a rap song with these pigeons flying that look like the Good Feathers, and yes, someone is kicking it. I'm telling myself, oh no. Dead. This movie's dead. This is totally gonna be another Smurfs. This is gonna be another Chipmunks. And you can tell that's what, like, the studio or the producers said to make, but it's done a little better. It's not quite Neil Patrick Harris saying, was it Martin Luther wing to the duck? Like making really bad jokes like that. Like I said, the writing's not that bad. There are some real groaners, but it's not that bad. Where, like I said, where it gets awkward is the actors and their performances. And a lot of these are good actors. Michael Peña can be very funny. I had no idea I've actually seen Grace Moretz in so much stuff. When I looked her up, I'm like, oh wow, I've seen her in a lot of things. And she's great in those movies. I mean, she's from Kick-Ass, she's from Let Me In, she's from all sorts of stuff. And she's done a few comedies too, but they're just needed to be more of an understanding of what this comedic style was going to be, because it really goes back and forth in tone and style and timing, and sometimes it works. Actually, the couple getting married in this are pretty funny. One of them is from SNL, and their lines are pretty funny. They know how to say these lines to make it work. And this movie feels very chopped up. The editing is like, there's a lot of cuts back and forth because you know they were like, this needs to be faster. We need to get across some dialogue when the camera's not on the person saying it, because we have to reintroduce this, or we have to shove this in, or we have to make something move faster. And sometimes that can be great. That can really move a comedy along, and that can actually really make, you know, a subpar comedy really come to life. This one, they don't quite have it down. There are some times where they get some laughs, but a lot of the performances on set just needed a few more takes. It needed, like a bigger version and then a more subtle version so the editor could go back and forth. Or maybe they did that and the editor just went with the wrong takes. For example, the main actress in this, I feel like people are really gonna hate her, and I kind of feel bad because I don't think it's her fault. I think this is, again, because she's been great in other stuff, this feels like a performer that's kind of like someone else in this movie. Ken Jeong has a cameo in this movie, and he's another one where it's like, when he's funny, he can be so friggin' funny. Like, he is just, I mean, if you see him in, what's that movie, Role Models, if you see him in that, I mean, brilliant. I mean, he is just so friggin' great in that, and that's a movie that knew how to utilize him. But when he's not, man, when they don't know how to utilize him, it can be painful. But I like actors that do that. I like ones that throw it all out there. They're taking a chance. They're crossing their fingers saying, man, I hope I have a good director, good editor, good producers that can make what I'm doing come to life. I'm putting my faith in them. And sometimes it just doesn't come through. And I really feel like that's kind of, especially the main performance, but really kind of everyone has that issue with this. So all of that aside, when it actually focuses on Tom and Jerry in this, a lot of the times it works. I think there's weird little like subplots in this, I suppose. Like, it starts off, Tom wants to be a piano player, which is like, that's kind of in the cartoons. Like, he plays piano. There's several times he plays piano. But then they just kind of forget about it. There's a lot of like little plots that'll just be like, okay, now we're doing this. Like, the story at first is trying to catch the mouse. Oh, they catch the mouse, and then it's like, well, now we gotta find this ring. Okay, they find the ring. Okay, well, now we have to make sure nothing goes wrong for the wedding. So, Tom and Jerry, you need to just go into Central Park or to the Met or whatever and get along. And that's kind of the story. And then it's following the guy that's in charge and how he is trying to get revenge and stuff like that. And then, like, there's an interrogation scene where suddenly this text is flying behind them, and, like, no other scenes in the movie are like that, aside from the opening credits where they step over the credits. But it's like, tonally, this movie's all over the map. But when Tom and Jerry have to fight and do the violence, and even when they get along, the expressions are there, the timing is there, the violence is funny, it looks painful. I'm glad a lot of Tom and Jerry stuff, they'll shy away from the violence because, we don't want complaints and people saying, my kid watched Tom and Jerry, I blame you for whatever, jumping off a roof or whatever. So I'm glad they do the violence in this. That's really, really nice. And they do it well. Some of the camera work with the violence is also really good. When they have to get along, I believe it. Like they still have good chemistry together. I like the various ways they try to communicate with the people doing, like charades and stuff like that. In fact, the main character starts to catch on more and more, and somebody's watching her saying, "You got all of that just from those few movements?" Like, so there's things like that that are really good and really charming. But then there's also stuff like, there's some fart jokes with the dog, and like I said, there's some rapping pigeons in the opening. And surprisingly, the main soundtrack, I would say, to this is very R&B based. And at the beginning with the rapping pigeons, I'm like, oh, this isn't gonna work at all. But the more it continued, it grew on me, especially when I thought back to the original Tom and Jerry cartoons, and they would do a wide variety of music, usually stuff that's popular at the time. I mean, if you want to just check out, I think it's called the Zoot Suit. I think just watch that episode and tell me they wouldn't get music of the time in there. So a lot of that kind of grew on me. What didn't grow on me is the actual orchestra in it and the cartoony music. Surprisingly, you would think that'd be totally switched, but it's just constant, and it's loud, and it feels misplaced at times. Like, the music will really build up at a point where it doesn't need to, or it'll be, like, really goofy when it doesn't need to. There's moments like that. So the film is all over the place, clearly. But I always say if a comedy gets more than 10 laughs, it isn't by accident. There's skill involved. Because there are some comedies where I'll laugh a couple times, but it's like, all right, but that was by accident. They're trying to get this kind of laugh, and, instead they got a different kind of laugh, you know what I mean? Like, not the intentional laugh, like an ironic laugh. But if it goes over 10 laughs, that's usually like a laugh every 10 minutes. And then this was well over 10 for me. And majority of them were with Tom and Jerry. So I guess I'm recommending it, though, again, watch the trailer. And if you are not laughing at any of it, or you're not a Tom and Jerry fan, this is not in any way the movie for you. The plot is like 20, 30 years old. The actors are kind of misdirected. The directing isn't always that great, and the editing, it feels very chopped. I mean, all of that. But when it is Tom and Jerry, for me, I laughed enough that I said, I'm glad I saw it. And even when it gets to stuff, I mean, this isn't that big a spoiler, there's a liar revealed in it. Even when it gets to that third act in movies I always hate, where they're just moping and doping around, and everything's gonna turn out okay. Why are we wasting our time with this drama that's not the least bit dramatic? They rush through it, and I actually really like this. Again, this actress shows how good she is at drama when, again, I don't think it's a big spoiler, when she does confess, the truth of what's going on. And she really sells it. She like, that's clearly more her comfort zone. But again, I feel like because everybody's a little off in this, I really don't feel like it's like her fault. I think that's someone. It's like the Christian Bale Batman voice. You just needed better direction. You needed someone to say that doesn't work. Because like I said, you're throwing a lot out there. I mean, I never thought she was half-assing it, or anyone in this was half-assing it. I just feel like it wasn't always in the right direction. But the stuff with Tom and Jerry, I thought was correct. I liked it much more than the original Tom and Jerry movie, and in stuff like, Willy Wonka and Tom and Jerry. I don't know why they feel like they have to put them in these plots. The original stories of Tom and Jerry, they're obviously made for shorts. So it can be just, chasing someone around or having a little bird or whatever. But if you're going to do a movie, the one thing the original film did that I thought was on the right track was like they lose their house. The house gets demolished. And then they're just kind of roaming the street trying to figure out what to do. And then that lasts a few minutes. And I was saying to myself, man, wouldn't that be a movie? It's just them trying to figure out where to live, where to go. And they're kind of like, it's ironic because I was talking about like, with Sonic, I don't want to see him in a car. I want to see him in a fantasy world. I want to see him running and going through loops and coming across fancy characters. That's Sonic. Tom and Jerry would actually be a good road trip movie. I'm not saying like they come across someone and they befriend them and they have to get somewhere to stop something. Not that, but I mean just them like maybe constantly hitchhiking, trying to find a place to live or something like that, and hopping from car to car or a train or whatever and coming across these interesting characters. That could be something. That more fits something like Tom and Jerry, so that's more what I think would work in this scenario, but that's not what we got. We got a movie called Tom and Jerry, where Tom and Jerry are done well. So I can't be that angry at it. But like I said, the live action stuff is not that great. If you're watching this saying, you lied to me, the live action, it's like, you said this was good and it's not. I'm just letting you know right now. As a diehard Tom and Jerry fan, I like the Tom and Jerry elements of this. I don't think that's going to win everybody over. If you can just kind of ignore the live action stuff with the people in it and the awkward timing and everything, which I could enough, I think there's enough laughs. But if you're just like, nah, that's too cringy, I can't do it, don't see this movie, man. It's not for you. So, yeah, that's about it. What did you think of the movie? Also, let me know if you're a big Tom and Jerry fan or not. If you're a really big fan, did you enjoy it, or did you think it just totally stabbed Tom and Jerry in the back, or do you think it was somewhere in the middle like I did? Let me know your thoughts, and I will see you next time. Take care.